I want to start today by putting a specific image in your head. It's this grainy black and white footage from the mid-60s. You've got Bob Dylan or maybe John Lennon, and the vibe is just incredibly claustrophobic.
Oh, yeah, the press conferences.
Right, they are completely surrounded. Reporters are practically climbing over each other, thrusting microphones into their faces. And the questions aren't just, how's the tour going? They are these massive, heavy, existential questions like, what is the message of your music? Or are you the voice of a generation?
Who are you, really?
Exactly. Who are you? And it's a fascinating scene because the pressure in the air is palpable. And if you've seen those clips, you know the musicians almost never give a straight answer.
No, never. They crack a joke, or they give this surreal, sarcastic non-answer. They just deflect.
Yeah, and for the longest time, I just assumed that was rock star arrogance. I'm too cool to answer your dumb questions. But looking at the stack of research we have for today's deep dive, that interpretation is completely wrong, isn't it?
It misses the point entirely. I mean, it's not arrogance at all. It's a defense mechanism, but not for their feelings. It's for their art.
Okay, unpack that a little.
Well, we're kicking this off with some insights from Steven Pressfield. He's the guy who wrote The War of Art and basically defined the modern creative struggle. Pressfield argues that Dylan and Lennon understood something critical. The music didn't come from their personality. It didn't come from the guy in the sunglasses.
Right.
It came through them.
Through them, not from them. That's a subtle distinction, but it feels really important.
It's everything. They viewed themselves as a channel. And you can't really explain a sacred channel to a reporter who just wants a soundbite about your ego right now.
No, you definitely can't.
If they started taking credit for the whole voice of a generation stuff, they would have clogged the pipe. They deflected to protect the source of the work from their own egos.
Which brings us to the mission of today's deep dive. We are talking about mastery through the quieting of the self. We're going to look at the tension between what Pressfield calls the small I and the big I.
And we have a really fascinating, eclectic mix of sources to get through.
We really do. We're pulling from Pressfield, obviously, but also ancient Stoic philosophers like Marcus Aurelius and Epictetus. Then we go into religious thinkers like Tolstoy and the Talmud. And finally, we swing all the way to modern, almost ruthless strategy with Robert Greene.
It sounds like a strange dinner party.
It does.
But they are all essentially trying to solve the exact same problem. How do you get out of your own way?
So let's start with the diagnosis. Let's talk about the small I. We hear terms like ego all the time, usually meaning someone is full of themselves, right, like vanity. But Pressfield's definition seems a lot broader than just vanity.
Much broader. The small I isn't just you looking in the mirror admiring yourself. It's a primal survival mechanism.
Okay.
Think of the small I as a calculator that is constantly running in the background of your brain. It's always calculating, am I safe? Do they like me? Did I get enough credit for that project? Is that person over there a threat?
Why?
It's the part of you that is riddled with anxiety and constantly narrating your life with a spin of fear.
So it's the voice in my head that replays an awkward conversation from 3 years ago while I'm trying to go to sleep.
That's the one.
Yeah.
That is the small I in action. And here's the core problem. That calculator uses up a tremendous amount of bandwidth.
Exhausting.
It is. If you are constantly calculating your social standing or your safety, you have zero energy left for the big I.
And the big I?
The big I is the operating system that runs when the calculator stops.
Oh, I like that.
It's the deeper current where mastery, creativity, and real connection happen. It's exactly what Dylan was trying to protect from the reporters.
Okay, I get the concept, but let's get really practical for the listener here. How do you know when the small I is running the show? Because, I feel like I'm a pretty self-aware person, but the source material mentions a specific trap that the ego sets. And frankly, I felt personally attacked by this one.
Ah, you're talking about the busyness trap.
Yes, the busyness trap. Because here's the thing. I have a to-do list a mile long. I have emails, I have errands. I feel highly productive when I'm knocking that stuff out. But the text suggests that this productivity is actually a trick.
It's the ego's cleverest disguise, hands down. We tend to think resistance to doing great work looks like laziness.
Right. Like sitting on the couch eating potato chips.
Exactly. But usually, resistance wears a suit and tie. The small I knows that the big I work, the deep, scary, vulnerable, creative work is threatening. It might fail. You might look bad.
So it distracts you.
It hands you a list of urgent but completely unimportant tasks.
So I'm answering 30 emails to avoid writing the actual proposal.
Yes. You are literally inventing things to do to avoid the important work. Reorganizing your desk, checking Slack every 5 minutes, running errands. It feels like work, so you don't feel guilty.
But really, it's a defense mechanism to keep you away from the work that exposes you.
Exactly. The text calls this state waking state unconsciousness.
Waking state unconsciousness, that's a heavy phrase.
You aren't asleep, but you aren't really awake either. You're just on autopilot, driven by this low-level fear of the real work.
That is terrifying. It's like active procrastination.
It is.
So if that's the diagnosis, that we are stuck in this anxious, busy, small I calculator, how do we break out of it? This is where our sources pivot to the Stoics.
Right.
Now, usually when people bring up Stoicism, it's all about having a stiff upper lip, suppressing your emotions. But Epictetus and Marcus Aurelius seem to be getting at something totally different here.
They really are. They are talking fundamentally about perception. Epictetus has this famous line, "We are not affected by events, but by the view we take of them."
Okay.
Now, apply that to the small eye. The small eye isn't just a calculator, it's a lens.
A lens.
Imagine wearing a pair of glasses that haven't been cleaned in 10 years. They're just smeared with pride, fear, and insecurity. That's your ego. When you look through that dirty lens, everything looks distorted.
Give me an example.
Okay, someone cuts you off in traffic. Through the dirty lens, that's not just a bad driver. That's someone disrespecting me. Or a client gives you some constructive feedback. Through the lens, that's an attack on my fundamental worth.
So the event is completely neutral, but the ego makes it a personal attack.
Precisely. We pulled another source for this, Imelda Octavia Shanklin. She says, when you rule your mind, you rule your world. The mind isn't a passive camera just recording reality, it's a projector.
A projector.
If your ego is running the projector, you are basically living in a horror movie of your own making.
This connects directly to something Marcus Aurelius wrote about. He calls it the transformation of wanting. And I have to be honest, this part confused me a little bit at first.
How so?
Well, he talks about changing what we want, but isn't ambition, wanting things? Isn't that what drives us to succeed? If I just stop wanting the promotion or the recognition, do I just become a monk sitting on a mountain?
That's the most common fear people have when they hear this. But Aurelius isn't saying don't have goals. He's saying you need to look at the quality of the wanting.
The quality of it.
Right. The ego's wanting is frantic. It's like, I need this external thing to be okay. It's grasping. He suggests transforming that into a desire for things that are entirely within your control, like wisdom, kindness, or just doing the work really well.
So it's the difference between I want to win the industry award and I want to write a book that is deeply true.
Yes, exactly. And the pleasure of that second one is steady. It's under your control.
Yeah.
The pleasure of the first one is a roller coaster that usually ends in a crash because you don't control the award committee.
Okay, so we need to clean the lens. We need to stop the frantic calculating. This is where the sources take a really interesting turn into the spiritual realm. We've got Tolstoy, Rousseau, and the Talmud. And I want to be really careful here because we want to impartially report on these sources. We aren't telling anyone listening to go to church or adopt a specific religion. But these thinkers seem to be using prayer or meditation almost as a psychological tool, right?
That's absolutely the right way to view it in this context. Think of prayer here not necessarily as theology, but as a pattern interrupt for the ego. Tolstoy and Rousseau explore prayer as a mechanism for ego dissolution.
Meaning it's a way to forcibly shut the calculator off.
Whatever your personal belief system is, the act of true prayer or deep meditation requires you to admit something profound. It requires you to say, I am not the center of the universe. I am not in control.
And the ego hates that.
That admission is pure kryptonite to the small I. Rousseau says, God does not change us. We change ourselves by drawing closer to him. He's saying the act isn't a transaction.
It's not God, please give me a new car.
Right. It's an alignment. You're deliberately setting aside the anxious, chattering self to listen to a bigger, quieter signal.
But there's a trap here too, isn't there? The text from the Talmud had a specific warning that I found really fascinating. It said, those who make a habit out of prayer do not pray sincerely.
It's a brilliant warning about rote performance. And honestly, this applies to everything, not just religion. If you meditate for 20 minutes every single morning just so you can check a box on your habit tracker and say to yourself, I am a very disciplined, spiritual person, who is that for?
It's for the ego. Look at me, I'm so zen.
Exactly. The small I is so incredibly sneaky that it will actually hide inside your spiritual practice. It will turn your humility into a performance metric. The Talmud is warning that the moment the practice becomes automatic, a mindless ritual, you've lost the connection to the big I.
You're right back to waking state unconsciousness.
You are.
Man, the ego really does not want to give up the steering wheel.
It fights for its life.
Yeah.
That's why the text says, let your faith be bigger than your fears. Fear is the primary fuel of the ego. Faith, whether that's in God, the universe, or just the creative process itself, is the only thing that actually cuts the fuel line.
All right, I am completely with you so far. Quiet the ego, stop the busyness, clean the lens, find alignment. But, and I really have to play devil's advocate here, we are also looking at Robert Greene today.
Yes, we are.
And Robert Greene is the guy who wrote the 48 Laws of Power. He is not exactly a let go and let God kind of guy.
No, he really is not.
He talks about strategy, aggression, power dynamics. How on earth does his work fit into a deep dive about quieting the self? Because if I just surrender everything, isn't Robert Greene going to tell me I'm going to get completely crushed by the competition?
This is the paradox that makes this whole topic so rich. Because if you stop at just quieting the self, you risk becoming entirely passive. You just sit on a meditation cushion and smile peacefully while your life falls apart.
Right.
Robert Greene comes in and shakes you. He says, wake up. No one is coming to save you.
Yeah, his quote in the notes is blunt. The world does not clear a path for you.
He argues that mastery requires relentless, aggressive effort. You have to push against resistance. You have to expand your horizons. We also have David Schwartz in the source stack saying stickability is 95% of ability.
Stickability, I love that.
It sounds like the total opposite of surrender, right? This sounds like fighting for every single inch.
It really does. So how do we reconcile this? We have let it flow through you on one side and grind until you win on the other side. Do we just flip a coin every morning to decide which one to be?
No, they actually fit together perfectly, but only if you ask yourself one crucial question.
What's the question?
What do you care about?
Okay, unpack that for me.
The ego cares about the result.
Yeah.
It cares about the credit, the applause, the money in the bank. It constantly asks, did I look good doing this? Did I win?
Okay, tracking.
Mastery, which comes from the big I, cares about the work itself. So the surrender we talked about isn't surrendering the effort. It's surrendering your attachment to the outcome.
Oh, that's a huge distinction.
You work ferociously, not so people will clap for you, but because the work demands to be done. You are incredibly aggressive about the craft, but entirely humble about your status.
That makes so much sense. It brings to mind Mother Teresa's quote from the text. Intense love does not measure, it just gives.
Right. If you're measuring like, I worked 10 hours today, I deserve a promotion, why didn't my boss notice? That's the transactional ego. That's the calculator running again. But if you are operating from intense love for your craft or your mission, you stop counting the cost. You just pour yourself out.
And that is where the expanded masterful self comes from.
Exactly.
We have a note here distinguishing between efficiency and effectiveness from Peter Drucker. That feels really relevant to this paradox.
It's the perfect corporate translation of this whole concept. Drucker says efficiency is doing things right. Now, the ego loves efficiency. It loves checking boxes faster than anyone else in the office.
It looks great on a performance review.
But effectiveness is doing the right things. That requires wisdom. It requires you to stop, quiet the noise, and ask, is this task actually worth doing in the first place?
And the ego never asks that.
Never. The ego just wants to look busy.
I want to ground this because aggressive surrender is still a little bit abstract, but there is a story in the source material from a golf instructor named Dan Grieve. No, I don't play golf.
Me neither.
But this story, this was the light bulb moment for me when I was reading the research.
The ball in the divot.
Yes. Set the scene for us because the psychological stakes here are surprisingly high for a game of golf.
Okay, so imagine you are in a tournament, the pressure is on, you hit a drive, you walk up to your ball, and it's sitting in a divot, which is a hole in the turf left by someone else's club.
Right, so it is a terrible lie. The ball is sitting low down on the dirt.
And your instinct, your small eye instinct, screams at you. Exactly. The calculator starts going absolutely crazy. It says, don't mess this up, be careful, just try to pick it off the top cleanly, minimize the damage. The ego wants to hedge its bets.
Yeah.
It wants to play it safe because it's terrified of looking stupid.
And what happens if you listen to the ego and try to play it safe?
You top the ball. You fluff the shot. You fare because you held back. Dan Grieve's advice to his students is completely counterintuitive. He tells them, make the divot bigger.
Make the divot bigger.
He means you have to commit 100% of the shot. You can't pick at it. You have to swing down hard into the earth, take a huge chunk of dirt, and follow all the way through. You have to accept the difficulty of the situation and go straight through it rather than trying to gently dance around it.
That is just such a powerful metaphor for life. The ego whispers, be careful, protect yourself, but mastery says, go all the way in.
Think about a really difficult conversation you need to have with a partner or a coworker. The ego says, just hint at the problem. Be vague. Don't upset them.
And what happens? The conversation fails. Nothing gets resolved.
Right. To actually resolve it, you have to make the divot bigger. You have to commit to the truth, even if it's messy and uncomfortable.
Or think about launching a new project. The ego says, wait until the website is perfect. Wait until the market conditions are exactly right.
And you end up waiting forever. Which leads us to the James Dean quote in our notes, of all people. Dream as if you'll live forever. Live as if you'll die today.
I always thought that was just like a catchy t-shirt slogan, but in this context, it's remarkably deep.
It perfectly balances the paradox we've been talking about. Dream as if you'll live forever covers the Robert Greene part. The long game, the patience, the years of quiet skill acquisition.
Right.
But live as if you'll die today means you don't wait for permission. You don't wait for the perfect conditions. You make the divot bigger right now.
Because waiting really is just another form of that busyness trap, isn't it?
It really is. The text calls waiting a delay tactic of the ego. We tell ourselves, I'll start writing when I have a better laptop, or I'll start the business when the kids are a little older.
It's just the calculator finding reasons to avoid the scary work.
And the Dalai Lama adds a beautiful point to this section. He says a calm mind brings inner strength and self-confidence. But he clarifies that it's not the strutting, arrogant confidence of the ego.
It's the confidence of someone who is okay with starting exactly where they are.
Yes, they aren't fighting their own reality.
They aren't waiting for the lens to be perfectly clean. They are just doing the work of cleaning it.
Right. And that brings us to the final and perhaps most important concept in our source stack today, Day 56.
Day 56. This refers to a specific journal entry in the source text, but what does it actually represent for us?
It represents the hard truth that you never actually arrive. You don't defeat the small I in some epic boss battle and then live the rest of your life in a state of permanent, uninterrupted zen.
Damn.
I know. The ego wakes up with you every single morning. The calculator turned on the second you open your eyes.
So every day is day 56.
Every day is day one. Every single day you have to make the conscious choice to quiet the self again. Think about Marcus Aurelius. He didn't write his meditations for publication. He wrote them to himself because he kept forgetting.
That's great.
He had to remind himself every day not to be a jerk and not to let the small I run the Roman Empire.
That is actually incredibly comforting to hear. Even the Emperor of Rome struggles with his morning calculator. It implies that mastery is not a destination. It's a hygiene practice, like brushing your teeth.
Exactly. If you stop doing it, the decay sets in immediately.
All right, before we wrap this up, I want to leave you, the listener, with a final thought to chew on. Something that builds on everything we've talked about today.
Let's hear it.
We've talked a lot about internal states, the calculator, the dirty lens, the paradox of effort. But think about how the small I physically manifests in your actual body.
Oh, that's interesting.
Notice the tension in your jaw right now, or the shallow breathing in your chest when that calculator is running at full speed, worrying about tomorrow. What if the very first step to accessing the big I isn't a complex mental exercise at all? What if it's simply a physical release?
Just physically letting go.
Just dropping your shoulders, taking one deep breath. Maybe the easiest way to quiet the self is to start by quieting the body and letting the mind follow.
I love that. The body as the gateway.
Exactly. It's time to stop protecting the ball, take a breath, and just hit the shot. Make the divot bigger.
That's the only way to play the game.
Listeners, thank you so much for going deep with us today. It's a heavy topic, but I think a truly necessary one. Good luck with your day 56.
See you in the next deep dive.
Take care, everyone.